Our guest tonight is lead singer of I Fight Dragons, Ryan Massaferi. Welcome to Radio Exposed.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, when did you get the idea for the chiptune Nintendo theme?
Well, it's actually something that I was working with Bill Prokopo, who's also in the band. He and I have co-produced the first couple of EPs. It was the first time I was working with him, and I had an idea for a song, and to do the demo, I said, what if the intro sounded like it was coming out of a Nintendo, like the chorus of the song, but it was coming out of a Nintendo. And so we played a fair amount of Mario 3 for research, and then kind of just analyzed it down and mocked it up, and we were so excited that we showed it to everyone, and I did a little more research and realized that it was that chiptune was being done by a lot of people in a lot of ways, and from there I was kind of just hooked, and I knew that I wanted to find a way to put that with rock, kind of pop rock, which is the stuff I was doing more at the time, and I kind of put the band together. We kind of came together around that sound and around exploring what could be done in that medium.
Now, what did you use as your sound effects source? And was there an initial cost which was kind of a deterrent trying to get everything hooked up, and you keep realizing that you got to buy more equipment to get this to work, to get A into C?
Yes and no. When we first started, it was mostly synthesized because to get the actual stuff to make real chiptune is a little bit expensive. I wouldn't say it's totally cost prohibitive. It's not hundreds of dollars, but we started using plugins for the most part. Actually, using a lot of the built-in Logic synthesizers. We do most of our recording in Logic. That we sort of tweaked all the settings until they sounded like the waveforms, from a Nintendo, and then I would say pretty soon after that, and since then the Game Boy has been my instrument of choice. I use a Little Sound DJ, which is the program that I use to access the sound card, and I'd say that's the main one. I also have a MIDI NES, which goes through the Nintendo and does the actual Nintendo sound card, but that's a little trickier to use, and that actually is definitely more expensive and harder to get a hold of than the Game Boy stuff. But it's something that over time it's just been an arsenal that I've built up piece by piece. And it's always just expanding because it's fun to see, what else you can get. And then these days also there's a plugin called Chip Sounds, which is definitely, it actually wasn't around when we started, and it's like the flagship plugin for really, really faithful chip emulation.
Now, you mentioned Mario 3. Are there any other games and specifically bands that kind of influenced your music?
Sure. Well, games definitely, actually. A lot of the first stuff, and really even going forward, for me, the Final Fantasy series has always been, the tops, but especially the early ones, Final Fantasy 2 and 3, there's just 4 and 6, I think, but, originally they were 2 and 3, and really even Final Fantasy 1 on the original Nintendo, the themes from, all the battle, which ended up being the battle theme for all the Final Fantasies ever, and different themes which are so, epic and iconic, were done with such limited, sound cards and sound processing, and especially the way that they kind of do strings, and they do things that can still be tender and soft without just being sort of manic and frantic. I would say that's been definitely a big inspiration on songs like With You from the first EP, Not I from this latest EP, and so for me, Final Fantasy, Bill's big, Mario 3 is definitely his favorite Nintendo game. We were at his house, that's why we picked that one up specifically, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely been all over. Mega Man is definitely an influence. There's a couple of songs that I've sort of, written, especially Mega Man 2, just the music from that is so mind-blowing. In terms of actual bands, my favorite has been Fountains of Wayne for like 10 years. I'm also definitely a Weezer fan. I'd say that especially Fountains of Wayne for me have had the biggest influence in terms of just trying to write, the best songs, songcraft songs, and then try and sonically do cool stuff that also, can sort of emphasize the message and the content of the songs.
You mentioned Weezer. Why Bother is one of my favorite covers. that
Thanks.
like we are me and Louie are both avid collectors of punk covers, and I actually like the Rickroll of Mario and Why Bother are like in my top 5. What are some of the other covers you might be working on?
Well, at the moment we're pretty focused on the full album. I mean, we've done a bunch of covers, obviously, over time, and we just did The Power of Love on this last EP, which was a lot of fun, and we played it live at the EP release show, which is a blast. But in terms of stuff that we're doing moving forward, we are actually going to be in Nashville starting like next week, recording the full album until the end of February. So we'll be working on just originals primarily, which is fun. But then we'll always be doing covers because they're a lot of fun. We have a few. There's one. I don't know if I should spoil it, but I have an idea that's to do a science medley of She Blinded Me with Science and Weird Science, and it's just kind of a brainchild that I've been working on, and I don't know if that'll come out soon, but that's definitely something that I've been putting together in my head.
Well, yeah, you got me drooling already. Like that's something I want to get a hold of. I know Louie had a question about your covers.
Yes. Well, Pinky actually introduced me to you guys with the Rickroll Mario song, which may be one of the greatest covers ever. And I just wanted to thank you for the Power of Love cover. There was a compilation a couple years back, one of that Punk Goes series. It was Punk Goes 80s, and there was a Power of Love cover on there. And I was really excited to hear it. And whatever the band was that covered it, they decided to take the original song and then slow it down and take any energy out of it. And I was just so happy that you guys actually took the song, kept the pace, and added so much more to it. And it's a killer cover. It's definitely jumped right into my top 10 covers.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. That one especially was when we were practicing it before recording it for the EP. It was like we were like, is this going to be too funky? Because it has like kind of a funk element. And as we were playing it, and then but Packy and Chad and Hari were all lead guitarist, bassist, and drummer were all just shredding and loving it. And then it turns out once I sat down with my Game Boy and kind of put all the pieces together, it ended up being exactly what we had hoped. It had a little funk element, but it really kind of is just driving and a blast to play as well.
Now, we have a couple questions off our Twitter line.
Sure.
Some guy wants to know if you have any criteria in picking the videos that play at your live shows, or is that something people can send in, like their best Paperboy game, or is that something you guys already have loaded?
Well, it's an interesting point, because we used to, as things have gone, we've always had videos playing, and for a while it was videos that I was editing together of people playing Nintendo games, but actually for the EP release show, and probably a lot moving forward as much as possible, we had live visuals by No Carrier, who is just an amazing, in my opinion, the best 8-bit visualist on the scene. He uses 3 Nintendos that he has written all the programs and code for, and then mixes them together live. And the only controllers he's actually using are, I think he uses an Advantage Pad and an old Nintendo controller. And the stuff he does is just gorgeous, and it flows so well because a lot of times he was at the release show controlling it live, and it's cool, just destructed pieces of games and other things that he's sort of programmed from scratch. So that's definitely something that we're hopefully going to keep working with him going forward, because he's amazing. But that said, people send videos in all the time, or especially upload them to YouTube and then just email us about them. And we love sharing them on our Facebook page or whatever. I think just last week there was someone that shared a video they had made of, it was I Fight Dragons versus Scott Pilgrim, and it was one of the coolest fan videos I've ever seen, where it was just cut together, heads up, hearts down, with a live performance and scenes from Scott Pilgrim, and it was great. I mean, it was so cool, and I love that movie and that graphic novel too. So it was just, that stuff is awesome, and we love any videos being sent in, and we love to share them with people too.
Now, what kind of feedback did you get when Money was featured on the Money in the Bank, the WWE pay-per-view?
Yeah, I mean, that was fun. It's been, it's funny because our attitude is generally like, look, in terms of using our songs for TV shows or for things like that, it's like we want to get the music out there, and it was funny because of all things that was, first of all, it was amazing, and we were completely sort of blown away, and definitely of all our band members as well. People are various levels of wrestling obsessed, to the point where Packy, lead guitarist, has like been a wrestling guy since he was little, and all his brothers are into it, and so it was just like the craziest thing ever. The band got to go and sit ringside at a Monday Night Raw and be on TV, and Packy got made fun of by Jerry Lawler, and it was just like
who hasn't,
crazy.
Really?
So yeah, so it was a huge honor, I would say, and yeah, its feedback has generally been good. It introduced a whole lot of new people to our music, which I think is the thing that made us the happiest. It's the more people that can hear the music, the better.
All right, I heard an interview you guys did with Fearless Radio from, I want to say, a couple years ago.
Okay, an older one.
You guys talked about Segway jousting. Did that ever get off the ground? Because this is something I want to do.
That's a brilliant idea. And it didn't. Actually, at the time, it was, I think we just never really got access to the Segways to do it, / we never ended up sort of getting it together. But that was because I think at the time we had access to Segways, and then somehow that sort of evaporated, and we were busy still recording the EP, and then we were sort of busy playing just a million shows for a while. But it's an awesome idea, and one I think either you should revisit or we should revisit, or both. Because Segway jousting is a brilliant stuff.
Yeah, Radio Exposed versus I Fight Dragons, Segway jousting.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Nice.
All right, since I got into you guys, the first time I saw you was the Subterranean show you did with MC Chris and Whole Wheat Bread. And since then, I've been trying my hardest to play you guys at parties or when we go camping, tailgating, anything like that. The song that I usually go to is Heads Up, Hearts Down. Is there anything like if you had to introduce a whole group of people to you guys, what would be the song you would pick?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because it's definitely something that changes over time. From the first EP, it was generally Heads Up, Hearts Down, or sometimes The Fast of the Treadmill, depending on what I thought the person, what I thought they would like more. But now I definitely play stuff from the newer EP, and usually for me it's Welcome to the Breakdown. That's kind of the one that I thought brings together a lot of where we're going. But the newer EP is tricky too because it's like we're super proud of it, but at the same time it's like it was something we recorded while we're still making the full album, so it was sort of a weird creative process where I think we love all the songs, but it's also like some of our songs that we feel like are best ever are the ones that we're going to record next week. But yeah, for me, I guess it's generally Welcome to the Breakdown at the moment. I really like the way that one sits.
Now, how'd you guys like that tour? That was your first tour, right, with MC Chris?
Yeah, that was an experience, just an amazing experience. That was our first real tour of any size, and it was a 2-month, 15,000-mile U.S. tour, and it was trial by fire, to say the least. We didn't have anybody working for us, so we were our own, tour manager, driver, roadies, everything. And it was awesome. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's it was just the coolest to go and play with people and getting to meet Chris and Whole Wheat Bread. Those guys are all awesome, and we learned so much from even just playing with them and watching them every night. And both of them in their own ways, because obviously Chris is an amazing MC. The stuff he does with the crowd is just brilliant. And and then Whole Wheat, I mean, their energy and their musicianship is also just astounding. So it was awesome to watch every night and to meet those guys and just to do it. It's crazy, and you constantly trying to loading in or loading out or playing or eating or sleeping, but at the same time it's what you do, and that was really cool too because it's the few 100-person clubs I think are some of the coolest shows that you can play. we've been lucky enough to get to play some of the larger ones on this last tour, and that's tricky. I mean, that's a whole other kind of rush, but I would say that my favorite from everything we've played so far is the stuff at the slightly smaller clubs, like sub T size clubs, where you really get to kind of make something with the crowd and everybody there gets into it.
Now, for that show, like I really haven't heard of you guys. The only thing I heard of was my sister, who's a big MC Chris fan. Is like, yeah, I Fight Dragons is playing. Like, okay, well, as long as they don't suck. I'm there to see Whole Wheat Bread. Their whole group is there to see MC Chris, and then I love MC Chris too. But you guys were so good. I just wanted MC Chris to stop so I can go to the merch counter and get all your stuff. It's like just come on. I play I Want Candy, and then let's get out of here.
I want candy.
We talked last week about Nintendo Care Tips. You guys obviously have a lot of Nintendo stuff. Did you have anything that you had to get that game working? Any tips for the people out there?
I would say that the biggest is for the few of you that own a Power Glove. Don't twist it around. The cords on those, we've gone through, I think, about 4 Power Gloves. Just because the cords are the things that break. I mean, they're notoriously glitchy anyway. But if you don't because they're all 25 years old at this point, if you're not careful, with the way you twist them and the way you wrap up the cords, they can break pretty easily. But Packy's tips that he always likes to give, and he thought everybody did this growing up, but apparently nobody else did. They would burp into the game. If your Nintendo game doesn't work, everybody blows on the cartridge, but he would burp into it, and apparently that sometimes had a magic touch.
Yeah, that was one technique that did not come up last week, and we must have covered 20 different ways to get the games to work, and burping into the game or the system was never mentioned.
Yeah, weirdly enough, that was his thing. Or you can get a new 72-pin connector, but I think burping is more reliable.
Was there a specific brand of like a pop or maybe a beer or something like in the later stages of your guys' life?
The cleansing burp.
No, get the Jewel brand Coke because it's like that Pepsi doesn't work. You have to get Jewel brand.
That's a good question. I gotta ask Packy about that because I've never delved deeply into his methodology there, but that's always a story I knew of his.
Another one off the Twitter line, and I think judging by like some of the names that have already been bandied about here, you might know who this is. Brian, are you excited for the Super Bowl in April?
Okay, there we go. That's it has been bandied about that I am not a big sports fellow. I don't tend to know a ton about sports ball events in general. And yes, I did famously, or at least in a small way, think that the Super Bowl was in April last year. And it was just a little conversation. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, no, I know I'm wrong now, but I just said that, and everyone laughed at me. And no, it's in not April. That's true. Whatever, the season just ended. I know that. I know a couple things. Not too many.
Now, you mentioned you're going to Nashville for recording. Do you have any upcoming gigs coming up, or is it just recording?
That's the main thing. We had the big EP release show about a month ago, and that was, amazing. That was, in terms of like shows that we've headlined, that was definitely the biggest yet. It was at the Metro, and it was just ridiculous energy, and so many people singing along, which is the thing that makes me happiest, I think, from on stage is when people sing along, and that was a blast, man. So basically, to sum it up, I cannot wait to get back to playing live more. But at the moment, it's for the next 2 months, we're going to be sort of nose to the grindstone recording. But then we'll be playing out again as much as possible.
All right, Louis, do you have any more questions? You know what I wanted to point out before we let Brian go was on their website in their merch store. I believe they're the only band in existence who not only can you buy, music and T-shirts and whatnot, you can also buy yourselves a nice light-up sword.
Yes, I'm getting that soon. I need it. I'm out of swords.
Yeah, why would you need it? Yeah. Yeah, it's for dragon fighting of all sorts. It was basically it was actually the brainchild of our merch guy at our record label. He's also kind of a nerd type like us, and he was like, I've made merch for, all kinds of bands, and they always just want to do standard stuff. I got to think of an item that would be the coolest, and he came up with it, and we went through, it was actually the funnest process. We went through, 10 different types of swords, and we ended up with, I think, the one it's kind of like a cutlass, kind of a pirate-type sword, but we ended up with that one because it was the one where we could print I Fight Dragons on the blade, and that was definitely a requirement, and... But yeah, it's got, makes sounds and has a few different light up settings. And it's basically my favorite merch item ever.
Speaking of, I'll definitely have to get one.
Speaking of merch section,
next time my kids come at me with a lightsaber, I'm going to bust out my light up I Fight Dragon sword, and we'll see who wins that battle.
Yeah, whatever. Slice that shit up.
Then with the merch, you can get Welcome to the Breakdown, and Cool is just a number at ifightdragons.com, and sign up for their mailing list too. That's fun stuff. They give you lots of fun things with that mailing list.
Free music. Yay.
And what's your high score on the website?
Oh, man, me?
Yeah, do you have a...
Yeah, I used to, when we first made that game, it only went up to 5 levels, and I could beat it just about every time I played it. And now that it's unlimited, I think the highest I've ever gotten, I'm trying to think, is, because, when we first converted it on the new website, they took off the level cap, and I'd gotten in, I think, somewhere around 40,000. It wasn't crazy impressive, but it was definitely something that was way crazier than when it used to end at level 5.
Yeah. I think I go to level 5 only.
Nice. Yeah, it just gets so crazy. But yeah, it's I think it was 40 or 50, because we, in the prototype mode, all the guys in the band and some of the designers were all sort of competing before we opened it up to see who could have the high score.
Well, Brian, thanks for joining us on Radio Exposed. It has really been a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
And we wish you and I Fight Dragons all the luck in 2011.
Oh, thanks. We're excited for it.
I won Grammys in 2012. That's what we're aiming for.
All right. You got it. We announced it here first.
You've heard it. Radio Exposed is naming the Grammys, and I Fight Dragons is part of it.
Nice.
Well, thanks for letting us talk to you on our silly little show.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh, my pleasure. Right. Have a good one, guys.
You too.